changing nature of arguments and positions people take is normal. I mean, there are books written about it, and certainly people are entitled to change their viewpoints, and certainly due to the changing positionality, people can grow and people can adopt new thought sets, new mindsets, and be able to look at issues differently. What is interesting for me is one thing has not been subjected to that kind of a particular change, and that's the issue of immigration. There are three things that I want to talk a little bit about, specifically, where the immigration comes from and which industries employ those immigrants, and finally, the nativist thought, in no particular order, but just focusing, right? A lot of people talk about the border issues, and certainly that issue is a significant one, both for the Democrats and Republicans. It's definitely important for the people who are trying to cross the border. And when we look at the data of how many people cross that border and why they cross that border, and if all of those issues are legitimate. And certainly the reason people flee their lives that are, or the countries from which they're escaping, is of significance. But see, here's the reality. For many, many years, those were not even the closest of the numbers of people who were crossing the borders. In reality, most people who arrive and stay in the United States do not come from the south of the border. They are people who overstay their visas. As a matter of fact, if we look at the data from 2019, 2017, 2015, over 700,000, close to 650,000, and so forth and so on. Double of the number of crossings on the southern border of people who arrive and overstay. So which means, interestingly enough, if we want to focus on undocumented and certainly individuals who are breaking the law, why is it that the focus isn't directed towards that, but rather is narrowly focused specifically on the south of the border? That issue is critical because we're talking about numbers of people at a double rate than those who are crossing from the south of the border. And as you think about that, right, like why is it that people not talk about it? Here's another thing I want to talk about, which is specifically which businesses operate and hire those individuals who are undocumented within the United States, right? And we're talking about farming, and we're talking about building, and we're talking about textile and food and accommodations and construction. All of those hire people. And see, the problem here isn't about who gets the jobs and who doesn't get the job. What I want to talk to you about is pay, right? There's a significant reduction in the pay and the hours, and certainly in ability for people to be able to earn a living, which forces those undocumented people to work at significantly longer hours. As a matter of fact, in a study that was released in 2009 about unfair labor practices, over 84.9% of people who were undocumented and working were not paid overtime, right? Which means their labor has been exploited. And when we think about fairness, and when we think about people being treated as human beings and all of us having earned the right to be protected under the laws, clearly nobody wants to pay attention to the fact that the rights of the laborer is being assaulted and that they are being massively underpaid. There was another study that I was looking at, and there was this individual who was employed in a Target, and one I think it was in Texas, and the response was, well, I think the company likes to employ undocumented people because we are easy to ignore, and that statement actually stuck out with me because. Why is it that we have ongoing prosecution of individuals who are trying to do their jobs as opposed to prosecuting individuals who are actually engaging in profiteering from it, which means also we see an increased amount of COVID notwithstanding, we see increased amount of gains for the corporations and companies, especially big ones, who are profiting from that labor, yet that does not translate into better pay. As a matter of fact, one, it doesn't translate in a better pay for those who are undocumented, and it certainly doesn't translate for a better pay for any of their employees, which actually raises an eyebrow. Why? And lastly, I want to talk to you a little bit about this non-changing thought, right? Like this nativist thought, which is oh, so preposterous when you think about it. It's the belief that there should be rules and regulations that treat the native population better. Aside from the asinine aspect that if you're a nativist in anywhere in the continental America, you should then, pretty much consider that you were not native, there were other people here before you. But putting that aside, that idea that certain groups of people need to be given the preferential treatment over the other individuals, especially within fields such as labor, such as medicine, such as education, is doubly asinine, because last time I checked, both our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence clearly states that all people are created equal, and they should have access to same inalienable rights, right? And it's very difficult to pursue happiness when you're getting paid, I don't know, $2 an hour, and have to work overtime and not get paid for it, and yet that's not being changed. That's not being stopped. What is being stopped is a whole bunch of conversation about building a wall, not building a wall, deporting people and not deporting people, and a whole lot of nativist nonsense that talks about jobs are being stolen. I don't think anything is being stolen other than the human dignity of those who are working really, really hard, and I think they deserve it.